Okay, welcome to today's topic. We're going to be working on factoring. And so we're just going to jump right in and start out. So remember that when we talk about the factors of something, an example is if I have, let's say, the number 12, then the factors of 12 would be 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. So all of those are factors of the number 12. And so if you had, let's say, another number like 20, so the factors of 20 would be 1 and 20, 2 and 10, and 4 and 5. And so when I ask you what is the greatest common factor, it is what is the largest number, okay? Largest meaning greatest, that they have in common. So that's what that means. What is the greatest factor they have in common? And so when I look through here, I see that they in fact have the number 2 in common, and they also have the number 4 in common, and that's it. So in terms of what is their common factors would be 2 and 4, but their greatest common factor would be 4. Okay? So that's what we're going to be looking at here. That's what we're talking about, is what is the greatest common factor. So when we talk about factoring, again, that is that breaking down. So we would say 12, its factors would be 3 times 4. That's called factoring. Okay? So we're going to do the same thing here, and this time we're just going to add in some variables to it. So look at my problem here. I have a negative 20, m to the 4th, plus 3, m to the 3rd. So what I'm really looking at is the number 20 and the number 36, and I want to know what number do they have in common. Now you could definitely do what I did up here above, and you could go in with the number 36 and say, okay, well, 1 and 36, I could get 2, because I always just kind of work up 2 and 18, 3, probably didn't leave enough room here, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, and then 6 and 6, okay? And we really don't need to rewrite that 6 over. We could just write it one time, okay? So we'll just put a 6 right here, okay? So now when I look at the 20 up there above, and I look at the factors I just wrote down, what numbers do they have in common? And again, you see that they both have a 2, they both have a 4, and is there anything bigger? And no, there's not. So 4 would be your greatest common factor here. So 4. Now that's in terms of our numbers. Now you could also do a negative 4 if you want. And generally speaking, if the largest monomial, okay, so we're talking this one right here, if it is negative, they'll take a negative out. Okay? Now, variables. Let's talk about how we know what is the most common there. Well, on 20, you've got 4 m's, okay? And on the 36, you have 3. So when I ask what they have in common, you can say, well, here's 1, here's 1, here's 1. So they have 3 in common, okay? So the easiest way to remember it is, in terms of the variables, it is always the lowest exponent. Okay, lowest exponent. So in this case, they both have 3 in common. So now what it becomes here is our division that we did on an earlier worksheet. And we're going to divide each of these by that common factor. And you might want to write it out like that, but some of you can just kind of do it in your head. So 4 times what is 20, and that would be 5. And m times what is m4, or m to the 3rd times what is m4, and that would just be an m. Okay? Or I could do my subtraction rule here. And 36 divided by negative 4 would be a negative 9. And then your m to the 3rds 0 out. and then that would be your answer. Now, what you should be able to do is if you go backwards and FOIL that or distribute it that, whichever the case may be, you should be able to get back to your answer. Okay, so again, we're just rewriting it. It's still 12 in this case. 3 times 4 is still 12. In this case, this is still exactly that same number. It is just in a different form. Okay, number 2. So I'm looking at the negative 6 and the 6. Again, I'm going to take out the negative 6. Now I'm looking at my variables. Well, this 6 here does not have any variables at all, so there's no variables I can take out. So again, I'm going to do that same division. That's what I'm doing. So the 6's cancel, and I'm left with m cubed n. And in here, 6 divided by negative 6 would just be negative 1. Okay, so on this one I have 35, 70, and 7. So what number will go into all of those? And hopefully you can see the 7. Again, I have an n cubed, an n, but the 7 here does not have a variable, so I cannot take any variables out. Remember, we go with the lowest, and in this case, this would be your n to the 0. So 35 divided by 7 would be 5, and you still have the n cubed left. 70 divided by 7 would be 10, and you still have the n left. And a negative 7 divided by 7 would be a negative 1. And again, think back. If I go back and I distribute that, would I get what I started with? Okay, the next one. We've got 7, 28, and 28. So what will go into all of those numbers? Okay, hopefully your answer is 7. Now look at the variables. I have an x and an x, but I don't have an x in this one. So there is no x in common. I have a y here and a y here, but this one doesn't have a y. So again, I cannot take out any variables. So 7xy divided by 7 would just leave your x and your y. 28x divided by 7 would leave your 4x. And 28y divided by 7 would give you 4y. Okay, so that is what we call common factors, just taking out a common factor. Now, when you are doing any of the other factoring, okay, any of it, it doesn't matter which one we're doing. So from here on out, this common factor, okay, that step should always be your first step, okay, always. Even if it's just a mentally looking at it and saying, do they have a common factor? Because a lot of them won't, but you do always look for that common factor to start. It's going to simplify your problem so that your problem is not so large of numbers. Okay, that is your common factoring.